In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, family, and welcome back to another powerful night on American Black and White, where we confront the truths of this nation with honesty, courage, and a commitment to collective liberation. Season 4 is already moving with purpose, and tonight we continue that momentum with a voice who stands at the intersection of scholarship, advocacy, and lived experience. Tonight's guest is not just an educator, he's a truth teller, a bridge builder, a scholar who understands that education is not neutral, that classrooms are political spaces, and that the people who stand in front of our children shape the future of our democracy. Born and raised in Oakland, California, a city known for its history of resistance, brilliance, and unapologetic Black identity, Dr. Eric T. Turner Jr. carries that legacy into every room he enters. His work spans K 12 education, higher education, and district level leadership. His scholarship centers the voices of Black and LGBTQ plus educators navigating systems that often demand silence while relying on their labor, their brilliance, and their care. Dr. Turner brings clarity where others bring confusion. He brings nuance where others bring noise. And he brings honesty where others bring hesitation. Tonight, we explore his journey, his scholarship, his advocacy, and his vision for an America that finally lives up to its promise. Family, share this stream. Bring someone into the room because tonight we're learning from a man who understands the stakes and refuses to look away. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Eric Turner, please. Hello, Dr. Turner.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh, just great. What about yourself?
I'm doing just fine. I must admit, I was listening to your kind words, and I'm like, who are you talking about? You can't possibly be talking about me.
That is you, and you are he.
Well, I
Well,
thank you in advance.
is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we jump into the show?
No, everyone who I pretty much told about it knows how I operate. So just get ready for me to do what I do best, which is talk about me.
I hear you. So let's actually start, as a matter of fact, with your life story and your roots. Growing up in Oakland, what early experiences shaped your understanding of community, identity, and justice?
Because I grew up in Oakland, all of those words were embedded in me from a very, very early age. I can 100% attest my family with that, just because they were very staunch on how we do not operate in a vacuum. We do not operate amongst people who are not there for us. I can name on so many, just on so many hands, the my birth family by birth, but also my extended family that has always, been in my corner, has always established that sense of community with me. And when I think about how that relates to justice, I mean, you already hit the nail on the head. When I didn't really understand the privilege of being a child of Oakland until I want to say maybe middle school, where I actually just started understanding the history of the city that I'm from. We can claim the Black Panthers. We can claim the fact that we literally had a education system that was trying to do away with Ebonics, and so because of that history, it flows through me, and I carry it with me everywhere that I go.
So, who were the people in your childhood who first recognized your voice and encouraged your leadership?
Huh. Um, when I think of people who recognize my voice, before I could even recognize it for myself, I think of two people or three people actually. Number one, my mother. I know she's most likely watching, but my mother was always that kind, literal and figurative prayerful voice in the back of my mind when I really thought I could not do something. And even to this day, I just kind of think of what my mother could and would say to kind of push me forward in order to do some of the things I think I can't do. But then I think on a very it's funny because I kind of think of them as like the angel and then the devil on my shoulder, but devil is using it very strongly. The devil being my grandmother, because my mother's a very soft spoken woman. My grandmother is not. You know exactly where she stands. You know exactly what she's thinking, and she's going to say it to you with no holds barred. But she very much instilled in me that ability to walk into a room knowing who I am and not being ashamed of who I am. And then on top, and then the third person is I'm kind of upset I didn't think to call her before the show, but I don't give her as many shout outs as I should. But my second grade teacher, her name is Mrs. Yvonne Temple. She taught Maxwell Park Elementary School, Oakland, California. Is no longer that name, but the building still stands. But I remember being in her first and second grade classes, and she was literally my first teacher who did not let me get away with nonsense. Like when it was very clear that I was not trying my best, she would make me do things over and over and over again. Um, and even something as simple as my handwriting. I never forget that she knew that I loved writing and I loved the art of writing. So my handwriting was very neat at a very early age. I never forget I handed her something that I just didn't really feel like doing. And clearly it wasn't my best work. And she made me do it again. And so that is the and so just that I'm not gonna accept anything less than your best. I learned that at a very early age.
Mm. So, having women that strong in your corner, behind you, and pushing you forward, what are the things that you think about most when it just comes to the work and the things that you do now? Because I'm sure that impact is still with you.
Oh no, absolutely. Again, if I am doing something, and I know I'm kind of like doing it halfway, that I'm not putting my best foot forward, I feel guilty afterwards. Like I look back and say, you know what? I did not give that my all. I did not give that my full go. I'm actually going to do this again. I'm gonna do it over because not that I want it to be perfect. I want it to just be 100% my best effort. And so even now, I just carry that forward because of the fact that I had those influences within me who not only expected me to do my best, but also supported me when I thought that I couldn't. Like I said, just going back to I won't tell my age, but I am way past second grade, and literally to this day, I can count on how many times prayers from everyone back home that literally push me when I don't feel like pushing myself.
So, how did Oakland's political and cultural history influence your worldview?
Hmm. Wow. It didn't influence my worldview until I left Oakland and then realized how wonderful of a place it is, how unique of a place it is, especially at the in when I think about the age that I did leave Oakland. So I left Oakland fresh out of high school. I moved to the East Coast to go to college, HU, the real Howard University, the only HU that is. I'm putting that out there on purpose. But anyway, when I think about just how I really felt like a fish out of water living in the East Coast. So I was like, nah, I like the culture. I like the swag that comes out of being from Oakland, and part of that swag is the political landscape and just the fact that I can just name so many people where in Oakland there's not a lot of things that slide. If you're from Oakland, you are very much unapologetic about speaking out against certain things. And I think the first time I really experienced that was um, I like to think that I'm just in the right places at the right time. When I moved to the East Coast, when I moved to DC, was at the cusp of President Obama's first election, and I just remember that there were so many nasty things being said about him because I went to a couple of town halls. And I remember I was just sitting there like, I wonder what's happening in Oakland. What's the town halls that's going on? What's the rhetoric that's going on, back home? But I definitely just think that the approach that comes from being from the Bay Area, specifically Oakland, is that it's very much um not to sound cliche, but very much power to the people. There's just not a lot that we are going to let slide. There's not a lot that we're not going to stand up against. There's not a lot that we're not going to stand on business about. And so even when I think about why I am the way I am now, why it is that I speak out against certain things, I know for certain is because I got that Oakland blood running fully within my veins.
What moments from your K-12 experience still guide your work today?
From my K-12 experience, definitely not having my first black male teacher until I got to high school. He is one of my mentors. I don't know if he's watching now, but I still calling him every now and again. Shout out to Mr. Tony Green, Bishop O'Dowd High School. But yeah, he was the first black male teacher I had. All of my other teachers were women. Um, I'm glad to say that most of them actually were black women, so that's not something that everybody can say. But he was literally the first model that I had of what being a teacher that is about his business, and a teacher that's very serious about what he is sharing with his students. That was my very very first example, and so whenever I even when I am teaching, I kind of think of how would Mr. Green say this? How would he present this? What kind of background information would he, um, express to students to really get them to understand why we're talking about this or why we're learning about this, why it's important to our history, our culture, and so on and so forth. But yeah, no, definitely having him as a model has carried me throughout my entire education career as an educator.
Okay. When did you first realize that education will become your life's work?
I ran from it. I'm not going to lie to you. I have been involved some way, shape, or form in terms of educating other people since I believe, fifth, maybe sixth grade. But then when I went to college, I had this grand, glamorous dream of being an architect. Um, and once I enrolled and once I got to Howard, I was an architect major and literally found out that I didn't like it. I liked the artistic piece, but I did not like measurements. And so you probably wouldn't want to go to a building that I designed because it would fall apart. And so I quickly learned that there was something else that I needed to do. And even the funny thing about that is even when I was an architect major, where I was thinking of like different volunteer things to do. The very first thing I signed up for was to be a mentor on Saturday mornings for it was a group called America's Promise. And it was like I said, it was a mentor group, and so we had tutoring. We had pretty much sent. It was a kind of a partnership with some local schools in the DC area. So we would like take them on trips to museums and whatnot. And my mentee, let's see, I think he was in the third grade at the time. And so that was my first, glimpse that I that I'm just not. I like little people, and so education was just it just kept pulling me. And then even when I enrolled or when I moved on to my master's program, I enrolled in the social work program, and literally talking to one of my advisors, and she was like, you know what, you would be amazing as a school social worker. What the heck is a school social worker? I never knew that was even a thing. And so I ended up working in two schools, and so by the time I got to my doctoral program, I was like, clearly, I'm not going anywhere. Clearly, education is where I belong. It's my space. It's where I really feel like I can do the most work. And here I am, rocking and rolling. Not going. I don't plan to leave the realm of education anytime soon. Yeah, it was just a call. It was literally a calling. I kept running from it, but it kept finding me.
Wow. So, I mean, so after all these years of education and from the time you started up to now, are there any things, are there some things that you look back at that you feel like you left behind that you need to make up for? Or did you bring everything with you from that time up to now and you're just rolling with it?
Very much the latter. When I think of my trajectory in terms of like all the places I've decided to go, all the things I've decided to do, I fully believe that I have not made any missteps. Sometimes I do think of what would have happened if I would have stayed in the Bay Area for like, my education matriculation, but I don't think those thoughts very long because I already knew long time ago that Howard was my first choice. And so when I got in, it was like, okay, I don't really care about other acceptance letters. That's where I'm going. And so then thinking about how I ended up here in Philly, I had a couple of options after wanting to leave DC. Moving back to California was one of those options, but nope, I moved here to Philly. Went to Temple, and I don't regret any of it. I just believe that there was a plan, that there is a plan in everything that I am doing, have done, and will do. So I don't look back and regret any of what I've done.
Great. How did your family respond to your academic and professional ambitions?
My family has always been supportive of pretty much everything that I do. Like when I wanted to be an architect major, my mother understood why. My dad's youngest brother, unfortunately, was shot and killed when I was 2, and he was an architect, and so I had the opportunity of looking at some of his work, and so I was greatly influenced, and that's why I thought I really wanted to be an architect. But my mother knew that, and so she was heavy on board. She still to this day is upset that I haven't designed her a house. Maybe I can return to that. I don't know, but no, my family has always been super supportive. When I told them that I was literally going to go through and do all of my schooling at once. Like I literally went from bachelor's to master's to the doctorate, and nobody told me, "Are you sure you don't want to take a break?" Everyone looked out and made sure that I wasn't losing my mind, but nobody told me that I was crazy, that I was wrong for doing it. Like everybody was has been in my corner. I know the only thing I've gotten grief about is that everyone expected me to have moved back to Oakland a lot sooner. Um, if it happens, it'll happen when it's supposed to. But other than that, my family has been so supportive of everything I've ever done.
Oh wow. So then with that being said, it sounds like with you just getting into this realm and you making that decision, those three strong women were behind you the whole time and they say, "Hey, go do it."
Oh yeah, my second grade teacher, she used to call, well, she still calls me every year on my birthday. And so when I told her that I was going to Howard, she jumped for joy. She was like, Oakland's gonna miss you, but I get on that plane, you gotta go. And it's funny because one of the one of the two people that I first told that I got accepted was Mr. Green. And so he pretty much looked at me and was making sure I didn't have any regrets, any doubts, because I can it's one of those things where you can look at a certain person where they're like, I'm not asking you if you're going. Like you have an amazing opportunity. So I don't really care what you're thinking about, what you're talking about. You're getting on that plane, you're going to Howard. And so yeah. They were the loudest voices in the room. And then of course my grandmother and my mother took me to DC. So it was everybody was on board with the vision.
Oh, wow. What personal challenges have shaped your resilience and clarity as a leader?
Wow. Um, Personal challenges. Whew. Actually, the challenges that are coming to mind are challenges that I have shared before, so I'm really not, nervous or apprehensive about sharing them again. Um, two things come to mind. Number one, being raised by a single mother, kind of going through navigating through that mindset of navigating of like, why do I have to grow up in this kind of household? Like I see people have two parents, blah blah blah, and it's like what's wrong with me? Um, I'm happy to say that those feelings didn't last very long. Once I really found out that number one, I wasn't the only one, and number two, just finding out like family structures are blessed no matter how they look. So I'm thankful that that didn't really affect me too much. Um, I will say one thing I carry with me, and again, this is something that I am not apprehensive about sharing with people. One of my major challenges, it's funny because when I think about the good things that happened when I went away to school, you take the good with the bad, and so a not so great thing was my freshman year at Howard when I was diagnosed as HIV positive, and it happened during a routine um checkup. I had no idea what was going on. I know I've been feeling bad for a while, but I couldn't really figure out why. And then once I found out, it was like a light switched on where I don't really know what this means, but I know that I'm going to need to navigate it. I know I'm going to have to figure this out. I know I'm going to have to, figure out treatment. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to not let this thing beat me. And so that was 2009. And so here we are, 2026. Wow, the numbers is crazy. And so here we are going on 17 years later, where it's like I quickly tapped and I don't want to make it seem like I haven't had those days where I really doubted myself, where I really didn't want to be here, like navigating this condition. But and I will say for like maybe the past I want to say maybe the past decade or so, all those feelings have pretty much gone away. It's like I'm not going to let this thing beat me. The same resilience that told me that I could move halfway across the country by myself is the same resilience that's telling me that I can deal with this condition and do all the things that I said I'm going to do, all the things that I want to do, and so on and so forth.
Well, I got to tell you this, Dr. Turner. I mean, I have no doubt that regardless, that you've got the resilience to beat anything. And I want to tell you that I have to give thanks to you should give a shout out to your mother because as you talk about being in a single parent home, a lot of people in our communities have had that situation. But just think about the resilience and the strength of your mother and your grandmother and how they have passed that on to you. And just look at where you are now and the things that you're doing and the difference that you're making. That's the thing that makes more sense and shines more of a light than anything you could ever imagine. So you got a strong mother, and I think she deserves a lot of credit.
And everyone who knows me knows that I don't play when it comes to my mother, like I said, I'm almost positive she's watching right now, and I guarantee you that if she is watching, she's in full blown tears. But you're absolutely right. Like, just be that resilience comes from watching resilient people. I've watched my mother be tired as all outdoors, but still making things happen for the household. I've watched my grandmother, who's already took care of her child, step in tired as she as who knows what, making sure that her grandsons need and want for nothing. I've literally watched other members of the family step up and rally around, where it's like, we with us as kids, we didn't feel like we were missing anything. After we get through, the initial shock of like figuring things out, we sit and think about it and say, we didn't want for nothing. We were good. We were always clothed. We were always fed. We were always loved, because of that very resilience that you're talking about. And so, yeah, it's a both a blessing and a curse, because the curse with it is because I'm so resilient to a lot of things. I don't accept a lot of nonsense, and so it's I'm very. I don't want to say I'm quick to cut people off, but I'm quick to cut people off if I feel like there's like some kind of nonsense brewing. Okay, you know what? I got things to do, and so I'm just gonna go over here.
Right. Well, look, there's a couple of chats here. I'm just going to put these on the screen, and they're basically just shout outs and comments. This one is from who yet? It's from Christian. It says, "Hey Charles, oh my God, I didn't know it was you." This is hey Christian, how are you? I'm glad that you're watching the show, and hopefully we can have you on one day. Christian's an art. He's an artist.
Oh, that's my big brother, so I know exactly who that is.
And of course, there he goes. He says, wait, there's the other one here. Um, Congrats, little bro. So I'm assuming he's talking to you.
Yeah, he's talking to me.
So, our next question here is: how has your identity as a black man shaped your journey through academia and leadership spaces?
Ooh, wow. Um, and it, again, when you think about the things you don't really notice until you notice them, being a black man in an educational space, more often than not, I'm the only one. Um, and so when I think back on my trajectory as an educator, when I first started teaching full time, my very first teaching job was at a Catholic school in North Philly. I was the only black male on the middle school floor. Um, and so just kind of navigating, just feeling like I'm on my own little island, and I have to make things happen not only a little bit more expediently, but also with a lot more care than other teachers. That became very apparent very, very fast. And then also thinking about that, like when I'm talking about being like the only one, when I transitioned over to, because I first started teaching out in middle school. And so when I actually transitioned to the K-2 side, teaching little babies. I was one of only two black men that were actually teachers. Like, and getting, and the thing about being a black male in education is you often get pigeonholed into being a dean. You either you get pigeonholed into being a disciplinarian. That's where they like to place us. And to stand out and say, no, I don't want to do that. I actually want to be in the classroom instructing and teaching, can be a very lonely thing. Especially if it's not many of us to lean on. And so even when I think about it, when I transitioned to the school district, I was the only black male on that team. And so I've talked about this before, where it's kind of um, it's kind of not it's not only tapped into the resilience that I've already long established, but it's kind of instilled like a lone wolf mentality. And so when you're the lone wolf, you got to make things happen. You got to make sure that your area is taken care of. You got to make sure your habitat is good, so on and so forth. And so it's a lot of pressure, but clearly it's nothing I have been unable to handle. Um, I am very happy to see that more and more the push to get more black males, like black male educators, like as teachers. I've been seeing a lot of work surrounding that, and I'm very, very, very happy to see to see that. You know, when I think of like I've done research on it, and when I was doing research, I think the numbers were somewhere around 1.8 to 2%. In the last 3 to 5 years, that has grown to about 3 to 5, which is not it's still not a lot in terms of percentage wise, but it's a monumental growth in terms of monumental in terms of how much it has grown, at least because of and I can think of organizations off the top of my head that are really like the really spearheading that. Center of Black Educated Development here in Philly, Profound Gentlemen in Atlanta, just various organizations that are really pushing hard to recruit and support Black males in education, because I can surely say that we need a lot more of us. Of course, there's some nuances to that that I'll get into in a little bit, but definitely just in representation alone, I would love to see more and more Black males get into education.
Dr. Turner, let me just do a follow up on that because you raise an interesting point. And I've got to tell you that I'm very proud and happy to know that I've had a share of an enormous amount of black male teachers that's been on the show. I'm impressed with each and every last one of you because what I'm noticing is that, and what I've seen is that each and every last one of you that have actually been to this show that I know of, and from the things that I've read, you guys are all making differences and impacts in the classroom where you guys are actually teaching these kids.
Hmm.
I had an educator last night, and I'm going to have another one tomorrow. So I need you to tell me, what is it about when there are black male teachers in classrooms that there seems to be a much higher esteem and a learning rate for these students?
Um, I think it's twofold. Number one, because and I can kind of put some a personal spin on it. I was very much the nerd in my family. Very and so when you see a black male in the classroom, being a nerd is not a slur anymore. It's a badge of honor, because it's like, if he can do this, if I can look at this man who looks like me, has a whole doctorate, and is willing to be here teaching me, I can do this too. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame in being willing to serve your communities through education. Like going backwards to talking about Mr. Green. When you think about, education being kind of a feminine thing, kind of this thing that really soft people do. So if you're a man who teaches, you're a very soft human being. Mr. Green is furthest from soft that I've ever seen in my life. Like he's a burly guy, track coach, and very much when he's coming down the hallway, it's him because you know his voice, because that's just how commanding he is of getting everyone's attention, even when he's not talking to you. So that was my example where it was just like, teaching as a black male is a badge of honor. It's probably, as much as people try to like kind of strip away its power and its narrative, it's probably the most masculine thing you could ever do. You are literally putting yourself in a room with other people's kids on purpose. What like what could possibly be wrong about that? What could be the negative regarding that? And so I think that's the first part. The second part is just again representation. The On top of the fact that not only do people say you shouldn't do it, but literally kids may think that's impossible. I never thought I could be a teacher until looking at people like Mr. Green finding other examples that said, you know what, you can do this too, and you should do this too if the passion is there. And another thing about it is that I've never came across a black male teacher that's not willing to say, I'm willing to talk to you about my journey. I'm willing to sit with you and kind of like guide you through it. And I think pretty much every black male educator I know has that mentality and has that willingness to be of a support, because we didn't always have that support. And so we're going, so that's just another way that we're going to pay it forward.
What lessons from your upbringing do you carry into every classroom and lecture hall?
Do not sell yourself short. Do not say that you can't do something without even trying. Um, and it's kind of, and I will say, and this third one is very tricky because I actually learned this from what not to do from watching certain family members. Please ask for help. In being resilient also comes stubbornness. I have been very guilty of at all the things that I've done, been very guilty of stressing myself out by simply not asking for help. And so even when I'm teaching on the college level now, that's probably the first thing that comes out of my mouth when on the very first day. Um, I'm explaining to my students, I don't care if the question is, where does this period go on this paper? Please ask for help. That is what I'm here for. I don't want you to feel like you have to do this on your own. I don't want you to be confused about anything. So, I carry that with me with every classroom that I enter into. Utilize me in the fullest capacity. You are not weak for needing help. That's why you're here in the first place.
What does home mean to you now as you live and work in Philadelphia?
Huh. Um. Hmm. I like loaded questions. Yeah. Home for me is very interesting because when I tell somebody I'm at home or I'm going home, people will ask me, "Are you in Oakland or are you in Philly?" And so, like, what is that? Like, they're used interchangeably. And the reason for that is because I've been so good and so blessed to be able to plant roots in multiple places that pretty much everywhere I go feels like home to me. Um, just because I have that confidence that I can navigate pretty much anywhere that I go. It might be scary, it might be overwhelming sometimes, especially if it's new, but I have the ability to make this place home. I have the ability to make this place matter. I have the ability to plant roots pretty much everywhere that I am or that I'm going. Um, and so when you think of, when people say I can't wait to get home, I just can't wait to get home and relax. For me, that could be interchangeable. Sometimes I can't wait to get back to Oakland because I miss, my mom. I miss California tacos, so on and so forth. Or Philly, I can't wait to get home to Philly. I want to be in my own bed. I want a cheesesteak. Like home means different things to me, but because and on top of the fact I'm a very avid traveler, the world is my home. like wherever I feel like being at that moment is my home.
So let's transition here and talk a little bit about your scholarship and professional work. Your work spans K-12, higher education, and district leadership. How do these worlds intersect in your approach to equity?
Oh wow. Because I have taught pretty much every grade from K to 8. I have never taught high school, but I've taught every grade from K to 8 and now teaching on the collegiate level, on top of the fact that I have taught in public schools, I've taught in charter schools, I've taught in private slash Catholic schools. So I just have the whole gamut of experience, worldviews, so on and so forth. And so, my view, especially when it comes to like equity and education, it bothers me when I see inequities because I've been in all these spaces, I've taught in all these spaces. One place is no different than the other. So, we need to stop treating spaces like they are. And so, that gets into the whole equality piece. But then when we go into the whole equity piece, these spaces are not different, but they are different at the same time. And the reason why they're different is not because of, because we're all naturally different from one another. So that's a natural difference. The differences in schools are not natural. They're purposeful, they're strategic, they have really horrible mindsets in the forefront of how those differences occur, how those differences continue, so on and so forth. So the equity piece comes in is like, I'm not going to allow you to do this to this school just because of where we are or what
Mhm.
and just because of the neighborhood that we're in, so on and so forth. And so like even when I started teaching social studies. Um, when I walked in the room, there was no set social studies curriculum, so I had to literally create the curriculum from scratch. And I was very much um I was very much in tune and very much intentional about making sure that is every child that comes in my classroom is going to get the highest rate social studies education that they possibly can get from a teacher, or at least from me, because I took that very seriously. Why is this a premier Catholic school, but there's no set social studies curriculum? There's a problem. Like I don't understand that. And so yeah, so even teach and I'm thankful that I teach at Rowan University in New Jersey. And one thing I love about Rowan is that it's very much in tune. Well, first, it's a public university, number one. And so they're very much in tune of serving all students. And I didn't know it until I got there, but it was very intentional about how it teaches students with specialized services. Um, and so a good majority of my college students come in with different needs. I just got an email this morning. I have two students that have already registered with the I always forget what the name of the office is called, but basically they reach out to all the professors, letting them know, hey, they're going to need to sit in the front of the class. They're going to need to you take virtual notes, certain things like that. But and it's one of my students last semester came to me and was just like, so like you read my document, like what kind of services I need, right? I said, yeah, I know, very much aware of it. And this is a young black brother actually. Yeah, I know, I'm fully aware of it. And so he had given me a paper that I knew wasn't his best work because I knew that he had been like taking all of my notes, and I know that he had been reading and annotating all of my notes. It took him a little while longer, but that was fine because I gave him the time to do so. So I gave the paper back to him. I said, no, no, man, I'm not going to expect less of you just because of your situation. And so not only am I expecting equity in terms of like, school, what services or how schools should be teaching students, I'm going to be equitable with my students and that I'm not giving you a pass. I'm going to stay on you. I'm going to ask you to do your best because regardless of what you have going on, you and I can work together and give me something better than this because this ain't working.
Wow. So so then I take it what you're saying is like you demand only the best from your students. When you know they got that quality, you like to keep them to that standard or above.
Absolutely.
Mm, that's excellent. That's great leadership as well. Um, what drew you to an interdisciplinary approach to education and public life?
Again, very much from seeing things from so many different angles showed me. I love the title of the show, but everything is not just black and white. There's a bunch of gray area. There's a bunch of middle ground. There's a bunch of colors that are all meshing together, putting together this picture. And so I have a hard time not being interdisciplinary when it comes to a lot of things. Um, and it can be something as simple like one of my dearest friends. I'm pretty sure he's watching. Um, sorry, they always tell me that I'm very much a middle grounder when it comes to a lot of things, and I do that on purpose. I'm like, it's very hard, depending on what it is we're talking about. It's very hard for me to lean one side or the other because I understand there are a lot of different reasons, a lot of different lot of different colors at play of what we're looking at right here. And so to ignore them is to continue whatever it is we're talking about, whether it's a problem, solution, what have you. It's only going to continue what we're talking about. It's only going to exacerbate what we're talking about. It's not going to solve what we're talking about if we only look at it from like us versus them or black and white. Um, and so when I think about, the work that I do in research, I was very interdisciplinary where I don't want to just do surveys and get a bunch of numbers. Numbers are great, numbers are wonderful, but I like talking to people. I like knowing the stories behind the numbers. But at the same time, if you're only focused on, stories and you're only focused on certain narratives and you ignore the numbers that kind of guide them, you could be leaving out a very important piece as well. So part of being interdisciplinary is just making sure I'm covering all the bases. I never want to be accused of leaving something undone, leaving something unsaid, leaving something not considered. I want to be able to and I will say I can admit this out loud. Part of it is my pride. I want to be able to have a discussion and well sir, what about this and that? I already talked about that. It's on page so and so. Go ahead and read it. And like I want to be able to have that space to back up what it is that I'm saying or doing, because that's a whole nother thing. I never want to be accused of watering something down or not being as thorough or not knowing what I'm doing. So the more interdisciplinary you are or something, the less likely someone can say, "Oh, he didn't consider that," or "She didn't think of that." Oh no, we thought about it from every angle, and this is how we got to where we are.
So, how do you define critical engagement in the context of schooling?
Critical engagement. Wow. Making sure that you are engaging, or like just using the word, using the definition in itself, making sure that you are engaging critically with all levels. So I have been in spaces where there's teaching going on, but there's not a single consideration, not a single thought to the plight of what parents and families have going on. Um, so if we're going to be teaching people's kids, but we don't want to talk to families and parents, what are we doing? That makes zero sense. And And so for me, um, it's critical just to engage with all levels. Whether so, if we're talking about a school, everyone should know what everyone is doing. I, as a teacher, should know what's going on in leadership and vice versa. Leadership should know what's going on with teachers and students and families. Um, because if something is just like I've been in spaces where things are left in the dark, things are being done in the dark, and all it leads to is chaos. And so one way to avoid that is just by again utilizing that critical engagement and being continuous about it. It's not a checklist where you're like, oh, I talked to them, I never have to speak to them again. That's not how it works. It has to be continuous, it has to be ongoing, it has to be purposeful. All of those things play into the critical piece. And then also just making sure that as long as like while you're um engaging with people, being like because I've also seen where people are very good at doing engagement, making sure that they cover the bases, but they are not very engaging people. And so that's also a very, very important piece. If people don't want to talk to you, everything that you're saying or doing is not going to be effective. And I've been in some places where leaders are not very nice. So why would I care about anything that you're doing? You are saying all the right things, but because you're not a very nice person, it's like going in one ear and out the other. Um, and so it's a lot of different parts in terms of what I believe makes engagement critical. But like everything else, once you start doing it or practicing it, all becomes second nature to me.
So tell us this. Um, how do people differentiate, what it is, or is there a difference between critical engagement and critical thinking? If so, what are they?
A difference between critical engagement and critical thinking.
Yes.
Um, I don't think there's differences because I mean you have to think in terms of being engaging. And so I think critical thinking is part of engagement or critical engagement. Have you thought about what you're talking about? Have you even thought about what you're trying to implement? And unfortunately, with certain leaders, you can tell that they heard it from someone. Maybe they found it online. I don't know, what have you. But they didn't actually think about how this is going to impact people, or if they thought about it, they didn't care. Now that's a whole nother piece because some people will tell you, "Oh yeah, I thought about it, but I don't. But my thinking led me to not really care about the consequences." And I think that's just as harmful as not thinking at all. I think it's very harmful where someone thinks about something and then decides to do harm anyway. I think that's very I think that might be even more hurtful if I'm being totally honest. Um, but yes, but thinking is 100% part of the process. One of my dearest friends, she's actually downstairs as we speak. Trust the process. So if you don't have thinking as part of the process, throw it all away.
So, what are the biggest misconceptions people have about equity work in education?
The biggest misconceptions is that my favorite. The biggest misconception is that we are trying to make the world too woke.
Hmm.
I hear that. I hear that all the
Elaborate.
time especially because of my research. So you have a black outwardly gay male who is doing research about middle schoolers being supported, middle school LGBTQ students being supported. You got a bunch of red flags come my way. It's to the point that even when I was doing my dissertation, I had to switch over to interviewing adults because when you see children and LGBTQ, ding ding ding, red flags. Everything is going off. Everything is Like, what is he doing? What is he going to talk to these kids about? What is he trying to put in these kids' heads? Blah blah blah. That all that nonsense. And so the biggest misconception is that we are too woke, that we are trying to change people or change, or especially children. If we're thinking about the research I do regarding students, changing students into things that are not, that we are negatively influencing them. It all has to do with the very historical narrative of that. LGBTQ teachers, regardless of color, are deviant in somehow. And so, pushing equity work, you have to be deviant. You cannot be altruistic. You cannot be a quote unquote normal person. You must be trying to harm our kids in some way. Um, you must be trying to set up a camp where all these kids are going to turn gay. And like these are the things that people have said or continue to say.
Yes.
Um, and I hate to say it out loud. I take it very seriously, but I laugh at the same time, because it's like I know it's nonsense. You know it's nonsense, but you just want to talk. Um, but that's at the same time when I'm done laughing, I take it very very seriously, because I know there are kids who need this work. I know there are students who need this work, and I know that there are adults that need to be awakened, that need to take their blinders off and recognize the world that we live in. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry to say it. Gay kids have been existing since the beginning of time. We are not going anywhere, and I say we because one thing I did not touch on was that I pretty much knew about myself when I was in fourth grade, fourth maybe fifth grade. And so, and like even think about it to this day, you can't tell me that I was too young to know what I was thinking. It's very funny when people say that because kids are not too young for like let's say if like I have nieces, you know, they're only two, so I mean they're turning two, so I'm not gonna age them. But if they have a crush on a little boy, nobody's gonna bat an eye. Oh, that's so cute. That's so adorable. Oh, but the moment if and when one of my nieces say they like this girl in a certain way, all hell's breaking loose. Um and so yeah, like the dealing with the misconceptions is an integral part of this work, unfortunately. And if you can't deal with it, you kind of just have to rethink on like whether or not this work is for you. I'm not gonna say give up on it, but you gotta be able to take the ignorance. You gotta be able to take the nonsense that will come along when you're trying to do equity work, especially when you're talking about equity work for certain groups.
Well, I'm going to tell you this, Dr. Turner. You just blew the horn. And I've got a follow up for this because, you just hit on something that's, oh my God. You're right about the ignorance and the misconceptions and how people see things and so forth. But what I want to get from you
Hmm.
is when you hear people making these idiotic, idiotic statements and making these insinuations, such as the ones you were saying about setting up gay camps, turning the kids gay,
Hmm.
all of that stupidity, because there's no such as that.
Hmm.
How do you normally react to that? Because I'm just going to say before you answer that question, like to hear things like that would really piss me to holly ho hell. Because it's like, if folk would actually sit down and look at the man in the mirror, then you know who that pedophile is or the person that the kids should be around. How do
Hmm.
you react to those things?
um you know like I said, I know my mother's laughing because normally when I see things like that, especially on social media,
Yes.
i I'm very much a you sound ridiculous. What are you even talking about? Shut up. Like I'm very much I can be very reactionary, and I'm very huge on comments and replies. But when I think about how I have chosen to deal with that nonsense, I go back to work. I not on not just my research, but using writing in general. One thing I did not touch on was that for me, when I think of, because being in a classroom is a political space, being an educator is political in itself. You have to kind of decide what form of activism you're going to use. My form of activism is writing. And so when I see stupidity, when I see nonsense, I get to work. Right, I love writing an op-ed. I can write an op-ed in my sleep. And so I love responding to nonsense that I see through writing. That is how I deal with that. Number one is it cathartic because it helps me from, like, physically reacting to nonsense that I hear. But it also just um I'm very much when someone says something ridiculous, one of your best weapons is because unfortunately ignoring people is not an option. When you ignore people, they think they can continue saying silly things. So you got to put them in their place somehow. You just have to. And so one way to do that, listen, babe, I got data backing up that everything that you're saying is ridiculous. Like even this whole nonsense with um students who are transgender not being able to participate in certain sports. I love seeing people talking about the um if you look at numbers right now, they're about 30% of student athletes are transgender. First of all, I don't know where you got that number from, but like 30% is crazy. And so no, sweetie, it's more like 0.5%, but not even but even if it's more than one, what you're saying, even if it's one child, what you're saying should not be said. Let's start there. But anyway, listen, I'm very much. I might have to put this on a T-shirt. When someone is rude and someone is just plain ignorant, kill them with the book. Kill them with your words. That's my weapon of choice. I'm not gonna let you slide, but I'm also not gonna waste my energy on trying to physically fight nonsense. I use writing. I use writing. I use op-eds. I use teaching. I use education as my way of combating all the nonsense that's out there.
How do you help educators understand the political nature of their work without fear or defensiveness?
Huh. Fear, I don't have, especially when it comes to something I'm like, especially in education. I have no fear when it comes to education. Defensiveness is something I've had to work through, because you in this work you do come across some educators that look like us, who don't get it, who have these antiquated beliefs, who have these mindsets and thought processes that are very counterproductive, counterintuitive, and are outright dangerous. And so I have learned that to be patient with people, and I've also learned that I've also learned that if I'm going to be patient with someone, I'm going to be patient with someone who looks like me. I extend a lot of patience to my fellow Black educators. I really do, because we are navigating a space where um, we are underrepresented, not only in terms of population, but in terms of being an educator. So then, when you come in trying to shake things up, a lot of things come up: fear, trepidation. Like, why are we trying to shake up the room? We just trying to teach and go home. So, like, and these are all things that I understand. So I extend on purpose a lot of patience to my fellow Black educators. It does not mean it's unlimited. My patience does wear out at some point, but I am very much willing to have dialogue and talk to fellow educators, especially fellow Black educators. I'm that is, and I've actually learned in a lot of ways that sometimes it's also on me that I don't have to come in hot. I don't have to come in guns a blazing. I could say, you know what you said or what you're doing is not it's not nice, it's not cool. Here's why you shouldn't do that. And sometimes opening up that dialogue, someone will say, you know what, I didn't think of it that way. Cool, I won't do it again. Or cool, I'll make certain changes. Um, and so it's a combination of using patience in general, but also knowing when to use it. And more often than not, it's very very important when you're talking to other Black educators. It's very very important to realize that we have all been fed the same nonsense. Some of us are a little further along in throwing the nonsense away than others and dealing with it in that way.
So, as a matter of fact, let's pivot over to your work there with the advocacy that you do for the LGBTQ plus educators and Black educators. What inspired your focus on the experience of Black and LGBTQ plus educators?
Again, being the only one in the room, and like I said, it's hurtful and disheartening where if I'm not the only Black educator in the room, if I'm in a room full of Black educators, what are they going to say or think about me once they found out that I'm not heterosexual? What are they going to think about me being in a classroom full of kids, especially kindergartners? What are they going to say about me? What are they going to think about me? Like all these are things that I've kind of dealt with. Um, and so that was one of the like just again being the lone wolf. Being a lone wolf could really open your eyes to like, I need to say something about this. I need to bring light to the fact. Like, have you ever noticed that there's not a lot of us in your school?
Right,
How do you think that makes us feel?
right.
Like, what message could you be sending? And very much, and to be very clear, it may not be intentional. Because I do. It's funny because I love that job applications have the diversity questions where they ask you certain questions about your race or they ask you certain questions about what gender you are. Not on, and I pretty much see those questions on all applications. Most applications do not include, are you LGBTQIA plus? I've actually seen a few applications that do, and when I see it, I'm taken aback. I'm like, whoa, I wasn't ready for this question to be on the application. But I like that it's here. But I'm also curious to know how many leaders actually look at that. How many leaders actually say, you know what, we have an issue with representation of this group. How am I going to be strategic and purposeful about filling those gaps? And a lot of people have an issue with that because I've actually talked to a few fellow Black gay teachers, and they'll say, "I know they brought me in for a quota. I'm not trying to be anybody's quota designation." As much as I understand that, I also I also say or reply, well, if not you, then who? If not, like, could we think of this another way? You are opening a door for other people to come through. You may be the only, you may be the first. What are you willing to do something that you're not the last? And I know that's a lot of responsibility. Um, because people will tell you, well, that's not my responsibility. I'm not in school leadership. I'm not in HR. You are absolutely correct. But at the same time, listen, me and Black means we're doing things that are not our responsibility. I hate to say it out loud, but that's just the way it is. We are doing things that are not our responsibility, that we should not be doing, that we should not be caring about. But that's not reality. And it's okay to take breaks, but you got to do things that you did not sign up to do. And that's just the reality of it.
So let me ask you this because that's a very interesting insight, and I love the way you worded that. But tell me this, like, you being a Black man, then you being a part of the LGBTQ community. And as you say, you're in class and you're teaching kids. Um, do you find that when they say as a black man, but then as a black gay man, that all of the strikes that are against you makes your road so difficult that a lot of times you don't get the deserved look or the breaks
Hmm.
that you deserve? Or is it always safe to just not say and just be heterosexual?
Um, and and I will,
But
and I
that's
will.
okay.
No, no, I absolutely hear what you're saying. You know what? I'm not even going to pretend that I have privilege in that. I have privilege in that, unless and depending on who you ask, some people might tell you that they know from jump that I'm gay, or some people will tell you that, oh, I didn't even know you. I've actually had someone tell me you hid it very well. I'm not hiding anything; it's none of your business. But but that's a whole nother conversation. But basically, what I'm getting at is that I'm privileged to the fact that I can operate quote unquote under the radar if I choose to. I choose not to because I know how dangerous that is. I know how unserving that is to both education as a whole and also to me. I'm not about to sit here and butch up and pretend I have so and so and then I don't have so and so to make you comfortable. That's just not how I operate. It's not how I'm going to operate at this not so big but still big age. I'm just not going to do it. And so yeah, for me, for me, like in recognizing that privilege, I just choose to not tap into it. I just think it's very important to say out loud all those things that you are saying. You didn't even know it, but it applies to me. Now what? You just talked all this mess about black about gay teachers, but you're standing in the presence of one and you didn't even know it.
Mhm.
And you just told me 2 days ago, I love what you're doing with the kids. I love what you're doing with the students. I love what you're doing for the school. Oh,
Mhm.
but now your wheels are turning because again, you didn't even realize that I heard what you said, and then you didn't realize that it didn't apply to me. Not so now what?
Ooh, ooh, see, that's one of them gotcha moments that need to be on camera.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look at their faces, they're just like a deer caught in the headlights.
Right.
And so, um, like I will say, like that's never it has not happened to me. Um, because I think I've been very blessed to be in spaces where that does not seem to be an issue, but I've seen it play out in other spaces, just like even by visiting other schools, listening to other people, listening to other people's experiences, and understanding like, yeah, that's not cool. And I'm also very much so just because it's not happening to me doesn't mean I don't care. I'm totally the opposite, because if it is happening to them, there's a lot of things stopping it from happening to me, but it still could happen to me, and I don't like that. It shouldn't be happening to anybody, and so I take that and run with it.
Well, how do issues of visibility and safety intersect for educators with marginalized identities?
Visibility and safety. When you try to be visible, you are putting a target on your back. I'm not even going to pretend that that's not an issue. So even going backwards for people who do choose to kind of operate under the radar, again, fully understanding why people choose to do that. I have my reasons why I choose not to do things. Like I have my reasons why I choose not to go under the radar and let things go unsaid or pretend to be something I'm not. But there are a lot of reasons why people do. And you can never knock those experiences either. I will go backwards to something I said earlier. There are black educators who just want to teach. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be the martyr. They don't want to be the hero. They don't want to do any of that. They just want to teach and serve and go home. And I don't knock those experiences either. I don't knock those viewpoints either. I'm just not going to do it. But I totally understand where they're coming from, and if that's what they want to do, in a lot of ways, I would ask them to continue doing so because I feel like us being in the space and being in the room is better than not being in the space. So, however that needs to happen, as long as it's like not being detrimental to oneself or dangerous to oneself, then you have my full support. But if you can at all say, tap into something to say, no, I'm not going to allow them to erase me, I'm always going to be an advocate for that as well.
Mhm. So, what does authentic advocacy look like in educational spaces?
Doing it from authentic advocacy is literally just doing it from a place of what you're doing, why you're doing it, who you're trying to save, even if it's just yourself. So that for me, that is where that comes from, where the authenticity comes in. It's not for show. It's not for to make money. Even though all those things are great, you should be paid for everything that you're doing. Like free labor, we ain't doing that in 2026. But that's not that's not the main cause of what you're doing it for. The advocacy is from a place of I want to see this world better than how I came into it. I want to see by the time I leave it, I want to see this place better. I want to see where in all 50 states, teachers cannot be fired for being gay. I want to see that there are schools who are not ashamed to have gay straight alliances. I want to see um, transgender athletes being fully integrated into whatever sport they choose to play. Like these are the things that I want to make happen above all else. Money and people knowing who I am comes after that.
Well, you know what? With all of the, how about with all of this, this great work that you're doing and this advocacy work that you're doing? I mean, how about putting together that alliance and we make that thing shine and we make it grow and we make it big? How about that?
Hey, I listen. I like when ideas just pop up. And so you name the word, and I'm there.
Yes, sir. So also we when we chatted earlier when we first got a chance to chat, I told you we do Black History 365.
Hmm.
And I ask you, who were the most influential persons or people in your life when it came to your life and career when it comes to Black history? You told me Bayard Rustin, Nikki Giovanni, and Linda S. Lovelace. Bayard Rustin was a strategist, organizer, and a gay black man navigating the civil rights movement. What aspects of Rustin's life resonate most deeply with your own journey as a black LGBTQ plus educator?
Wow, wow. One thing about Bear Rustin is that he was unapologetically himself in a time where it was illegal to be. And so that's one thing I take from him. Number two, I take from when I think of all the work that is done that people don't get credit for, Barrett Rustin 100% comes to the top of my mind. When I think of the fact that he was in Dr. King, we were coming up on Dr. King's holiday. He was in his ear regarding a lot of the ideas, regarding a lot of things that we give Dr. King credit for. Not saying that Dr. King doesn't share in that credit, but we got to put Bear Rustin's name where it belongs as well. And so those are two things. Number one, being yourself when people tell you you shouldn't. And even if I have to be behind the scenes, I may not like it, but I'm going to be more proud that the work is being done rather than trying to shake up the room. Well, hey, what about me?
Well, I'm gonna have to tell you this. When I've already read a lot of things about Baird Rustin and what he did during the civil rights movement. But when the thing is that he is the reason that the "I Have a Dream" speech took place, but
Hmm.
did not get no credit and couldn't even go to the White House. That in itself was the most disrespectful thing I had ever seen. And I could never, ever, despite how great the movement may have been, that is one part of the movement that is unforgivable. And it's
Hmm.
unforgivable because you've got an actual human being that contributed way more to the success of what's happening today. But the majority of the people in this country, being younger or older, have no idea who Baird Rustin is unless you're a part of the LGBTQ community. And that is definitely a slap in the face, but that's also a discredit to the service that this man has done for this country.
No, and it's because I'm thankful for people who would not let these heroes go unknown or
Mhm.
forgotten. People will tell you they didn't hear about Barrett Rustin until college. They may tell you they didn't know who Barrett Rustin is until the movie that came out a few years ago. They had no idea who he was. Thankfully, I had Mr. Green who told me who Barrett Rustin was when I was a sophomore in high school. So I had those people who were not going to erase people from history, who were not going to just allow them to just sweep people under the rug. And that's why I paid for it because um, I had a picture of Bayard Rustin in my classroom. Um, I still have it downstairs. So if I return to the classroom, I plan to put it right back behind my desk where it usually hangs. But yeah, because I'm not going to let you erase him. I'm not going to let you forget his name. I'm going to say his name loud and clearly.
So Rustin often worked behind the scenes, shaping movements without always receiving public recognition. How has his example influenced the way you think about leadership, visibility, and impact?
Circling back to what I said before, you may not get the recognition. It hurts. It sucks. I'm not going to call it what it is, but I would like to think that he rested well, knowing that his work was done. That what that he played that he played immovable. That he played an undeniable part in pushing society forward. Um, and for me, and in a lot of things, I struggle with sometimes not getting credit for the things that I've done, the things I continue to do. But sometimes I do tap into, you know what? I may not get the credit, I may not get the regards, but I know that before I started teaching social studies, when there were only four students passing the class. By the time I was finished teaching, only two students were failing. That's okay with me. I know that I did what I was supposed to do. I know I did my job.
Mhm. Nika Giovanni's poetry is bold, unapologetic, and rooted in Black love and resistance. How has her voice shaped your understanding of storytelling, truth telling, and the power of language?
Whew. Um, when I think about when I first read a poem by Nikki Giovanni, it's funny that I read her work and Toni Morrison's work for the first time in the same year.
Mhm.
Um, and so I loved Toni Morrison because I definitely, picked up the dialect. I knew she was writing two black people, four black people, so on and so forth. And then when one of my friends gave me a collection of Nikki Giovanni's poems, I had no idea who she was. And so then I went ahead and looked her up. Oh, not only is she a badass writer, she's one of my people. And so I was so grateful that I got to meet her before she passed away. I met her while I was a student at Howard. Dr. Tony Medina's. I was in his creative writing class, so I was able to meet her during like a student symposium. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I just remember just being in awe because she's a very short lady, but I just remember just being in awe of her spirit, being in awe of how unapologetic she was about being black, about being lesbian, about the type of writing she did, about who she was writing to, who she was writing for. Like I just remember being so enthralled with her, and I'm still enthralled with her to this day. Because when I think about my writing and like, are people going to get this? Are people going to know what it is that I'm talking about? I hope they do, but sometimes I don't care. And I tap into Nicky Giovanni a lot when it comes to that. I'm not writing for people who aren't meant to get it. If you refuse to be ignorant, that's on you. But I know what I'm talking about, and I know what I'm doing. And so that's what I also had a quote from her in my classroom as well. Um, yeah, RIP to Nikki G.
So Giovanni often writes about the emotional interior lives of Black people. How has her work influenced the way you approach care, empathy, and humanity in your scholarship and teaching?
Hmm. Care, empathy, and humanity. Um, all the work that I do is because I care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be doing any of this. And so, like when I think of the whole empathy piece, I know that my life could have been totally different if I didn't have people who supported me when I quote unquote came out. My life would be totally different if I didn't have people who supported me when I received my diagnosis. I had a totally different trajectory if my family somehow got on my case because I changed my major 3 and 4 times before I decided on education. Like, um, like care and empathy is so integral to this work, and it's so integral to teaching, so much to the point that you can tell who doesn't care or who doesn't have empathy. um and I will say teaching is one of those professions where we'll get somebody out in a heartbeat. Like there's no we'll give you 2 and 3 chances. There's no collect 200, pass go, like, and then try to circle the board again. No, like education is very much are you about the life of caring about people? Are you about the life of caring about children, or are you not? Um, especially in I mean, there are some places that could be better at it than others, but overall, education as a profession itself has all of those things. And so when you think about just adding blackness on top of it, I'm going to care and be empathetic to every situation. Um, but when it comes to my black babies, I'm going to be even more. I'll never forget. I'll never forget one of my first teaching jobs. I literally watched a fight happen in my classroom. Um, and the reason why I watched the fight happening, because it was between 2 boys. I watched the fight happen because I watched one boy tell the other boy numerous times, leave me alone. And I even said to the other student, if you like, I moved them across the room, I did the whole thing. So when they happen to find themselves right next to each other, I am from, the culture and empathetic mindset that if you keep playing with me and you keep poking the bear is gonna bite. So I'm not gonna punish this student for being the bear because I watched him try the other way multiple times. And so, having empathy and care, how we handle our students is very, very important. How we discipline our students is very important. Um, I mean, of course, we're not letting them get away with nonsense. Like that's not what we're saying, and that's a whole thing about misconceptions. Where if you let them get away with one thing, you must let them get away with everything. That's not what I said. That's what you wanted to hear. Moving on, but yeah, no, definitely. I go into every space knowing that there are certain things that I'm going to have to do to keep that care and empathy and also the equity piece there. Like I'm as much as I highly anticipate or I highly expect greatness out of everyone,
Mhm.
I'm also going to be very patient on how that occurs.
So, Linda S. Lovelace is known for her groundbreaking work in Black feminist thought and educational leadership. What parts of her scholarship or activism have most shaped your approach to equity and advocacy?
So for people who are watching, if you have no idea who that is, that's because that's my grandmother. Um, I love the fact that I'm an adult and I still call her Nana, but that's my Nana. Um, I Okay, I'm not gonna get emotional. Nope, not gonna do it. Just thinking about everything she's had to endure, and I will not put her business out because she will never forgive me if I do. But she's endured a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. She too was a black single mother. She raised my mother by herself. Um, and so her being the first one in our family to get a master's degree has always been like bewildering to me. Um, and she's also one of those people, like I said earlier, you know where she stands, you know what she's thinking, what she's saying. And because of that, is because she is very unapologetic. Like she did the work. She did not have anything given to her. Everything that she's earned, everything that she's done and accomplished, she's worked for it. And so I carry that, everywhere that I go. Um, like every opportunity that she's has because she pretty much opened the door for herself and then did not waste the opportunity that she was given, so on and so forth. And also when we talk about, not getting that credit, she's someone who has been shamed for a lot of things, who has been dismissed unfairly, but still dust her shoulders off, knowing that what she did was her best and that she had a great impact. Um, and so just thinking about, her, like when I think about her scholarship like that, I will say I don't think I ever said it out loud. This is actually my first time ever saying this out loud. Um, I remember thinking in high school, oh, if my nana got a master's, I can get a doctorate. I can go above and beyond. And so that was one of the thought processes in my mind that of how I could push my family forward and be and do and like prove that I saw the sacrifices. I saw everything that they've accomplished and how I could accomplish what they did and more. Um, and that also influenced me to when I was considering like what I was going to study. I said, my nana would study this in a heartbeat. She would not let anybody tell her no. She would not let anybody say she can't do it. She would not let somebody tell her that it's not important. So I'm gonna do it, and I did it.
Mm. Um, Linda S. Lovelace's work centers the experiences of marginalized educators. How has her scholarship informed your research on Black and LGBTQ plus educators navigating stratified systems?
Hmm. So the fact that we were both Black and LGBT educators um, plays a part in that. But I also watched the work that she was doing with other marginalized groups. So Another thing is my grandmother was involved with the Special Olympics, and I used to, and this is when I was very early on in age. We're talking about maybe 5 to about 8 or 9, and so just watching how she was so awesome with those athletes again, not letting their circumstances really define them or letting them try helping them to be the best athletes that they could be, while still also being very patient with them, very loving with them, very intentional on how she was working with them. These are all things that I carry forward in my own practice. um, and then, of course, when I think about how it transitions to my research, because, like I said, if I saw very, very early on the aspect of if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? And my Nana is very much the one who stepped in when people were not willing to do things. And so, yeah, I could pretty much talk about this till I'm blue in the face, but just how I navigate and move forward through my life, through scholarship, I keep in the back of my mind that if she can do it when she did it, I can definitely do it now.
Final question. Each of these figures challenge systems that try to silence them. How have Rustin, Giovanni, and Lovelace helped you navigate your own visibility within politically charged educational spaces?
You're not going to shut me up. They all represent what I consider a triangulation of you're not going to shut me up. You're going to get me unapologetically. You are going to hear what I have to say, and you are going to do something about it. Yeah, I'm not just going to talk just for the sake of talking. I'm going to keep talking until I see some changes being made. Um, and so at times that's gotten me in trouble. At times that's gotten me reprimanded. But I know what I'm doing, and I know who I'm doing it for. So I don't mind those ramifications. I don't mind what comes after that. Um, and so if I have to summarize it in one sentence, it's simply put, I'm going to keep talking about it, so you might as well fix it.
Mm. So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you have for our audience? How they can connect with you via social media, your website, all of those good things, how they can buy your book, all of that good information.
Okay, so I am currently trying to figure out how I'm going to get my books back out there. So I will always, I'll navigate that. I can get out of my own way when it comes to that. But everybody can pretty much search for me by name. You search Eric Turner on Facebook. I'm always adding new people, always willing to message people, talk with people. My Instagram is at Dr. Ty.junior, and I believe that's my Twitter/X handle as well. If not, please don't judge me. My mind is going. Um, but if I had to give words of encouragement to anybody who's watching, is your work is important. So just get out there and do it. Do not let this world try to tell you you can't, and do not let this world try to dictate who you are as you're doing it.
Well, so I want to tell you that I want to thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom, the work that you do, and the strength and resilience that you show in doing it, and that you're not short sighted when it comes to dealing with your students. But the great work that you do is definitely needed, and we need to keep up the same that same wherewithal that you have as we're going forward to make sure that our students get what they need and become the best people that they could possibly be for the future. So, Dr. Turner, tonight you offered us clarity, courage, and truth. You reminded us that education is not simply about curriculum, it's about humanity. It is about who gets to be seen, who gets to be heard, and who gets to be whole inside systems that were never designed with all of us in mind. Your voice challenges us to think deeper. Your scholarship pushes us to confront the contradiction we often ignore. And your advocacy reminds us that liberation is not theoretical, it is lived, it is fought for, and it is necessary. To our viewers, let tonight be a call to action. Support the educators who stand up in the gap, challenge the systems that silence truth, and commit to building a world where every child and every educator can show up fully, freely, and unapologetically. I'm your host, Charles King. This is American Black and White, and we will continue telling the stories that matter. You all have a great evening, have a great night. Come back and watch us tomorrow as we have another great show for each and every individual out there that's going to make a difference. And for those of you that are watching on all of our YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed, please support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications so you will be able to watch each and every show live as we do our shows. And also keep in mind that this Friday coming up is going to be the first of our Final Word Friday shows. Every Friday, starting as of the 16th and every Friday going forward, we will have 3 guests on as a panel that will be discussing the week's hot topics or the topics that they feel are most important when it comes to the things that are missing, what's not happening in our communities. So you guys have a great evening, and we will see you guys tomorrow evening on America in Black and White, where we will continue to color conversations on the canvas